Before Roger Moore became James Bond, he starred in what he called his most appalling television series ever, a show where actors inhaled dangerous fake snow containing 6-inch nails, scripts were literally recycled from other westerns, and a British heartthrob wore fur coats in scorching California heat while portraying an Alaskan conman. Here are the 15 weird facts you didn't know about the Alaskans. Fact 1. Roger Moore's most appalling career low. Roger Moore didn't mince words when looking back at the Alaskans, calling it his most appalling television series ever in multiple interviews throughout his career. This was no small statement coming from an actor who would go on to play James Bond 7 times and star in countless productions. The British actor, who was still establishing himself in American television at the time, found nearly every aspect of the production to be miserable. The show forced him to work in brutal conditions on Warner Brothers' California backlot, where he and his fellow cast members had to wear heavy fur coats and parkas while filming under the scorching sun. To make matters worse, the scripts were often recycled from other Warner Brothers westerns with minimal changes, which Moore found deeply frustrating as an actor trying to create something original. He later reflected that attempting to recreate the frozen landscapes of Alaska in the sweltering heat of a Hollywood studio backlot made for disagreeably hot workdays that left the entire cast exhausted and irritable. The recycled scripts meant Moore frequently found himself delivering dialogue that had been written for other actors in entirely different shows, robbing him of any creative satisfaction. Despite the grueling conditions and uninspired material, Moore remained professional throughout the show's single-season run, though he never hesitated to express his honest opinion about the experience in later years. The show's failure and Moore's vocal dissatisfaction with it make the Alaskans a fascinating dark chapter in the career of a man who would become one of the world's most beloved action stars. Fact 2. Dangerous fake snow contained nails and wood. The artificial snow used on the Alaskan set posed serious health hazards to the cast and crew, creating working conditions that would be completely unacceptable by modern safety standards. According to Roger Moore's autobiography, the production team initially created fake snow using a mixture of gypsum and cornflakes, which sounds relatively harmless, but was actually quite irritating when blown into actors' faces by powerful wind machines and airplane engines rigged to simulate Arctic blizzards. However, the fake snow formula became progressively worse as the production continued, eventually including 6-inch carpenter's nails and chunks of wood that had somehow gotten mixed into the artificial winter precipitation. The situation became even more disturbing when considering that the crew members operating the equipment were allowed to wear protective gauze masks to shield their faces and eyes from the dangerous debris, but the actors were explicitly forbidden from wearing any protection because it would be visible on camera. This meant that Roger Moore, Dorothy Provine, and Jeff York had to take the full blast of this hazardous mixture directly in their faces during outdoor scenes. The conditions were so harsh that cast members were required to visit the studio nurse at least twice daily to have their eyes flushed out, as the gypsum, wood particles, and other debris frequently scratched their corneas and caused severe irritation. This daily ritual became a painful reminder of just how miserable the production conditions truly were for everyone involved in bringing this ill-fated Alaska adventure to television screens. Fact 3. Scripts literally recycled from Maverick and other shows. The Alaskans holds a dubious distinction in television history for its shameless reuse of scripts from other Warner Brothers Western series, with at least 6 episodes directly recycled from shows like Maverick, Bronco, Sugarfoot, and Cheyenne. This practice wasn't just casual inspiration or similar story structures, but rather the wholesale lifting of entire scripts with only the most minimal changes made to character names and geographic locations. The primary catalyst for this unprecedented script recycling was the 1960 Writers Guild of America strike, which severely limited the availability of new material for television productions across Hollywood. However, Warner Brothers had already established a cost-cutting policy of reusing scripts across their various Western series even before the strike began, viewing their multiple shows as interchangeable products on an assembly line. The practice became so routine that episodes would simply swap out mentions of a saloon in the Old West for a saloon in Skagway, Alaska, while keeping the dialogue, plot beats, and character interactions virtually identical. For instance, an episode titled The Long Pursuit on the Alaskans later became the basis for a Cheyenne episode called The Bounty Killers, with almost no creative transformation between versions. Similarly, episodes originally written for Sugarfoot were transformed into Alaskans episodes like The Bride Wore Black and White Vengeance, which had started life as Man Wanted and Ring of Sand on the other series. This cynical approach to content creation meant that viewers who watched multiple Warner Brothers westerns would occasionally experience strange déjà vu moments when recognizing identical storylines dressed up with different character names and slightly altered settings. Fact 4. The W. Hermanos pseudonym mystery. Warner Brothers developed a peculiar solution to hide their script recycling practices from viewers and industry observers by crediting reused episodes to a mysterious pseudonym that became an inside joke within the television community. Whenever an episode of The Alaskans featured a recycled script from Maverick, Bronco, or another Warner Brothers Western, the writing credit would list W. Hermanos as the author instead of the original screenwriter's name. The pseudonym was a cleverly bilingual pun, as Hermanos is the Spanish word for brothers, making the full credit W. Brothers or Warner Brothers for anyone who understood the joke. This tongue-in-cheek approach to crediting recycled material represented the studio's acknowledgement of what they were doing, while simultaneously trying to obscure it from casual viewers who wouldn't recognize the pattern. The W. Hermanos credit appeared frequently during the back half of the Alaskans' 37-episode run when the Writers Guild strike made obtaining new scripts nearly impossible, and Warner Brothers leaned even more heavily on their recycling policy. Television historians and dedicated fans of Warner Brothers Westerns eventually decoded the meaning behind the mysterious writer's name, turning W. Hermanos into a symbol of the studio's notorious cheapness during the late 1950s and early 1960s. The pseudonym has since become a footnote in television history, representing an era when studios exerted complete control over content and felt no shame in repackaging the same stories across multiple series to maximize their return on investment while minimizing creative expenditure. Fact 5. Moore performed Garner's exact dialogue. Roger Moore experienced one of the strangest situations an actor can face when he discovered that many of his lines on The Alaskans had been written specifically for James Garner's character Brett Maverick and were being delivered almost word for word without any adaptation for the new setting or character. Moore later reflected in interviews that he would frequently realize while filming that he was performing Maverick scripts with only the character names changed from Brett or Bart Maverick to Silky Harris or Reno McKee. In a 2007 interview, Moore specifically noted that quite often he realized they were filming Maverick scripts with just the names changed, and in some cases even the dialogue stayed completely unchanged beyond swapping out character identities. This bizarre situation created an unintentional audition scenario where Moore was essentially proving he could handle James Garner's material, since he was literally delivering Garner's dialogue while inhabiting a similar charming rogue character in a different geographic setting. The experience made it remarkably easy for studio head Jack Warner to envision Moore as a replacement for Garner on Maverick itself, since Moore had already demonstrated his ability to deliver that exact dialogue convincingly. When The Alaskans was canceled after just one season, and James Garner departed Maverick following a contract dispute during the same year, Warner Brothers immediately cast Moore as Bo Maverick, the British cousin of Brett and Bart Maverick. Moore joined the show under protest, frustrated by the declining script quality and the studio's continued reliance on recycled material, but his time on The Alaskans had inadvertently prepared him perfectly for the role by forcing him to master the Maverick style of dialogue and characterization. Fact 6. A love triangle. Named Dorothy Roger Moore found himself in an awkward romantic situation during The Alaskans that involved two women who shared the same first name, leading to a confrontation that revealed his extramarital affair in the most uncomfortable way possible. Moore was married to Welsh singer Dorothy Squires at the time, but during production he fell deeply in love with his co-star, Dorothy Provine, who played the saloon singer Rocky Shaw on the series. The affair remained hidden until Moore's wife confronted him one night after noticing that he had been calling out the name Dorothy in his sleep repeatedly. When Squires pointed out this revealing behavior, Moore attempted a weak defense by responding, "That's your name," hoping to brush off the accusation. However, his wife immediately shut down this excuse by pointedly stating, "You know very well you never call me Dorothy. You call me Dot." This response left Moore with no choice but to confess his feelings for his co-star, effectively ending his marriage to Squires, though their divorce wouldn't be finalized until 8 years later in 1968. The situation created tension on set and complicated Moore's personal life significantly, as he had to navigate his crumbling marriage while continuing to work closely with Provine on a show that was already miserable for numerous other reasons. Dorothy Provine was described by Moore as quiet and retiring, unlike many other actresses he had worked with, which was part of what attracted him to her during the difficult production. The love affair became one of the few positive memories Moore took away from his time on the Alaskans, even as it contributed to the personal turmoil that marked this troubled period in his career. Fact 7. Alaska statehood celebration gone wrong. The timing of the Alaskans was carefully calculated to capitalize on a historic moment in American history. But the show's strategy backfired in an unexpected way that contributed to its cancellation. Alaska was admitted to the United States as the 49th state in January 1959, generating significant national excitement and media attention about America's new frontier. Warner Brothers and ABC executives saw this as the perfect opportunity to launch a Western series set during Alaska's gold rush era, hoping to ride the wave of public interest in all things Alaskan. The show premiered in October 1959, less than a year after statehood was granted, and early promotional materials positioned the Alaskans as a celebration of America's newest state and its colorful frontier, history. Viewers initially responded to this novelty, with many people tuning in specifically because Alaska had been so prominently featured in recent news coverage. However, the show's novelty factor evaporated remarkably quickly when Hawaii was admitted as the 50th state in August 1960, immediately shifting national attention and excitement away from Alaska. By the time Hawaii achieved statehood, the Alaskans had only aired about 3/4 of its planned episodes, and the show suddenly seemed dated rather than timely. The public's fascination with Alaska cooled considerably as Hawaii became the new symbol of American expansion and tropical paradise imagery dominated popular culture. This unfortunate timing meant that the Alaskans lost its primary marketing hook just as the show was struggling with other problems, including poor ratings, recycled scripts, and competition from more established programs on competing networks. Fact 8. Fur coats in 80-degree heat. The physical discomfort experienced by the Alaskans cast reached absurd levels due to the fundamental disconnect between the show's Arctic setting and its actual Southern California filming location. The entire series was shot on Warner Brothers' backlot in Burbank, California, where temperatures regularly climbed into the 80s during filming. Yet the actors were required to wear authentic heavy fur coats, thick parkas, fur hats, and multiple layers of winter clothing to convincingly portray characters braving the Alaskan wilderness. Roger Moore described the experience as physically taxing and sometimes dangerous, as cast members would become genuinely overheated while performing action sequences or lengthy dialogue scenes under the intense California sun. The production team made no allowances for the actors' comfort, insisting on complete authenticity in their winter wardrobes, even though the surrounding environment featured palm trees and sunny skies rather than snow and ice. The wardrobe department had invested considerably in period-accurate fur coats and cold weather gear, and they were determined to use these expensive costumes regardless of how miserable they made the actors. Between takes, cast members would desperately try to cool down by removing as many layers as possible, but the quick turnaround times on the production schedule meant they often had only moments of relief before having to bundle up again for the next scene. The grueling shooting schedule combined with the oppressive heat made the Alaskans one of the most physically demanding television productions of its era, and cast members frequently required medical attention for heat-related issues during the show's single-season run. Fact 9. Disney's Mike Fink became a gold rush swindler. Jeff York brought considerable fame to the Alaskans from his memorable role in Disney's wildly popular Davy Crockett television series, where he had portrayed Mike Fink, the loud and boisterous keelboat operator, who became a cultural icon during the mid-1950s Davy Crockett craze. York had appeared in 2 Davy Crockett episodes titled Davy Crockett's Keelboat Race and Davy Crockett and the River Pirates, where he delivered the memorable boast, "Girls run and hide, brave men shiver, I'm Mike Fink, King of the River," which became instantly recognizable to millions of American children. His performance as the flamboyant riverman with his big bluff build and personality made him a natural choice for another Frontier Adventure series, and Warner Brothers cast him as Reno McKee alongside Roger Moore's Silky Harris. York stood 6 feet 4 inches tall and brought a commanding physical presence to the role of the Gold Rush-era con man and adventurer. However, York mysteriously disappeared from the Alaskans approximately halfway through the show's only season, with his character simply vanishing without explanation and no official statement about his departure from the production. Multiple viewers who remembered the show decades later specifically noted that the chemistry among Dorothy Provine, Roger Moore, and Jeff York had been excellent, but that the series was never as good after York's unexplained exit. The exact reasons for his mid-season departure remain unclear even today, though theories range from contract disputes to dissatisfaction with the show's declining quality. York's absence left Roger Moore and Dorothy Provine to carry the remaining episodes without their third lead, fundamentally altering the show's dynamic during its final months on the air. Fact 10. Sean Connery rejected the role. Before Moore. The career trajectories of Roger Moore and Sean Connery became intertwined in a fascinating way through their connections to Warner Brothers television westerns and the James Bond franchise, creating a strange reversal that neither actor could have predicted. When James Garner decided to leave Maverick after the show's 3rd season due to a contentious contract dispute with Warner Brothers, the studio scrambled to find a replacement who could fill the considerable void left by their departing star. Studio executives first offered the role of Beau Maverick to Sean Connery, who was then a relatively unknown Scottish actor looking for opportunities to break into American television and establish himself in Hollywood. According to biographer Michael Feeney Callan, Connery was offered long-term Hollywood television contracts for both Maverick and Wyatt Earp, either of which would have guaranteed him the permanent access to Hollywood he was actively seeking at that time. However, Connery turned down both offers, finding the proposed financial terms too modest and choosing instead to pursue other opportunities that seemed more promising. With Connery out of the picture, Warner Brothers turned to Roger Moore, whose work on the Alaskans had already demonstrated his ability to handle Western material and deliver the kind of charming rogue dialogue that Maverick required. Approximately a decade later, the situation reversed itself in spectacular fashion when Roger Moore replaced Sean Connery as James Bond in Live and Let Die. After Connery had established the role through 5 films and become synonymous with the character. This career reversal created one of Hollywood's most interesting what-if scenarios, as it's fascinating to imagine Sean Connery playing a cowboy on Maverick, while Roger Moore pursued other paths to stardom. Fact 11. Future director Robert Altman wrote for Moore. During Roger Moore's transition from the Alaskans to Maverick, he had the opportunity to work with a television writer and director who would later become one of America's most celebrated and influential filmmakers. Robert Altman, who would go on to direct masterpieces like Mash, Nashville, and The Player, wrote and directed an episode of Maverick titled Bolt from the Blue that featured Roger Moore as Beau Maverick during the show's 4th season. This collaboration represented one of the few times during this period of Moore's career that he worked with genuinely high-quality material written specifically for him rather than recycled from other shows. Altman brought his distinctive sensibility to the episode, crafting a story that showcased Moore's abilities as both a comedic and dramatic actor while working within the Western genre's conventions. Moore later identified this episode as one of his few positive memories from his time on Maverick, noting that Altman's script provided the kind of quality writing he had hoped for but rarely received during his 14-episode stint on the show. The Bolt from the Blue episode has since gained additional significance for film historians studying Altman's early career, as it demonstrates his developing style and storytelling abilities during his journeyman period in television, before he broke through to feature films. This brief collaboration between Moore and Altman represents a fascinating intersection of talent, with both men still finding their footing in their respective careers before achieving the international fame that would define their later work. The episode stands as one of the better installments of Maverick's declining fourth season and a reminder of what the Alaskans might have been with stronger creative leadership. Fact 12, an abominable snowman episode in Alaska. The Alaskans took an unexpectedly bizarre turn into cryptid mythology with an episode titled The Abominable Snowman that aired on December 13, 1959, bringing legendary monster lore to the Klondike Gold Rush setting in ways that stretched the show's already loose relationship with historical realism. The episode began with a dying prospector stumbling into the town of Skagway, claiming that his severe injuries had been caused by a mysterious monster lurking in the frozen wilderness, sending the entire town into a state of panic about what might be stalking the remote northern territories. This premise allowed the show to explore the kind of folklore and superstition that would have genuinely existed among isolated mining communities during the 1890s, when prospectors spending months alone in the wilderness might convince themselves they had encountered supernatural creatures. The episode was directed by Lou Landers and featured guest star Ruta Lee alongside the regular cast, mixing the show's typical Gold Rush adventure storytelling with elements of horror and mystery. Several viewers who watched the show as children specifically remembered this episode decades later as one of the most memorable and distinctive installments of the series, with one fan noting he remembered it vividly even though he hadn't seen the show since he was 11 years old. The Abominable Snowman concept was particularly fitting for an Alaska-set series, as the Himalayan Yeti legend had captured American imagination during the 1950s, and transplanting similar cryptid mythology to the frozen north made perfect thematic sense. The episode's treatment of the monster mystery and its resolution demonstrated the show's willingness to experiment with different genre elements beyond straightforward Western adventure storytelling. Fact 13, the catchy Gold Fever theme. The Alaskans featured an infectiously memorable theme song called Gold Fever that became one of the show's most enduring legacies, with viewers reporting they could still sing it decades after the series left the airwaves. Composed by Mac David with music by Jerry Livingston, both highly successful songwriters with numerous hits to their credit, the theme perfectly captured the excitement and obsessive nature of the Klondike Gold Rush with its irresistibly catchy refrain, "Got the fever, got the fever, got the gold fever." The song played during both the opening and closing credits of each episode, drilling its melody and lyrics into viewers' memories through sheer repetition and its upbeat, energetic arrangement. Multiple fans of the show mentioned the theme music specifically when recalling the Alaskans years later, with one viewer noting that even though she considered the show a commercial debacle, she could still recall the theme music perfectly and had loved singing it as an 11-year-old watching the show during its original broadcast. The Gold Fever theme represented the kind of period-appropriate music that television westerns of the era used to establish their historical setting and create instant atmosphere, functioning almost as a character itself by reinforcing the show's central conceit that everyone involved in the gold rush was driven by an almost pathological desire for wealth. Mac David, the composer who wrote the song's lyrics, also served as producer on several episodes of The Alaskans, giving him an unusually direct connection to the show beyond just providing its musical identity. The theme's lasting impact stands in stark contrast to the show's otherwise forgotten status, proving that sometimes a great song can outlive even the program it was created for. Fact 14. Dorothy Provine's immediate career upgrade. Dorothy Provine experienced one of the smoothest transitions from a canceled series to a successful new show in television history when she moved directly from the Alaskans to the Roaring Twenties immediately after her first series ended. Warner Brothers clearly recognized Provine's appeal and star quality, even though the Alaskans had failed to find an audience, and they wasted no time casting her in a very similar role on their new period drama set in the 1920s. On the Roaring Twenties, Provine played Pinky Pinkham, a dazzling singer and dancer who performed Charleston numbers and entertained audiences at a speakeasy, which was essentially the same character she had played as Rocky Shaw on the Alaskans, just transplanted from an 1890s Alaskan saloon to a 1920s Prohibition-era nightclub. The new show proved far more successful than the Alaskans, running for 2 full seasons from 1960 to 1962 and establishing Provine as a genuine television star. A profile in Time magazine during the Roaring Twenties run stated that it is Dorothy's oohing and shimmying that have kept the series afloat, recognizing her as the show's primary attraction. Provine's musical talents, which had been underutilized on the Alaskans, became central to the Roaring Twenties, where she recorded an album of songs from the show and even scored 2 hit singles on the UK singles chart, with Don't Bring Lulu reaching number 17 in 1961 and Crazy Words, Crazy Tune hitting number 45 in 1962. This career upgrade demonstrated that the Alaskans' failure wasn't due to its cast, but rather to the show's miserable production conditions, recycled scripts, and unfortunate timing. Fact 15. Never shown in reruns for 40-plus years. The Alaskans holds the dubious distinction of becoming one of the most thoroughly forgotten shows in Warner Brothers television history, virtually disappearing from public view for over 4 decades after its original broadcast ended in June 1960. Despite producing 37 hour-long episodes, which would normally be enough content to sustain a healthy syndication package, the Alaskans never appeared in reruns on any television network during the decades when classic television westerns enjoyed considerable popularity in afternoon and late-night time slots. This absence from syndication made the show incredibly difficult for fans to revisit, and multiple people who remembered watching it as children noted their frustration at being unable to find anyone else who recalled the series or any way to see episodes again. The lack of rerun availability meant that the Alaskans existed primarily in viewers' memories, rather than as an accessible cultural artifact, with fans occasionally mentioning the show online or in conversations, only to be met with blank stares from others who had no memory of its existence. Television historians and classic TV enthusiasts had to rely on scattered episode guides and production information rather than being able to actually watch the series and evaluate its place in television history. The situation finally changed in August 2024, when the Warner Archive Collection released The Alaskans, the complete series on Blu-ray, marking the first time in over 40 years that the show became available for home viewing. This release included all 37 episodes transferred from the original camera negatives in stunning 4K quality, finally allowing modern audiences to discover or rediscover Roger Moore's most appalling television series and judge for themselves whether it deserved its forgotten status.